I'm going to use the BA2 Plus here to calculate something that's a little more interesting than a standard problem. Here I'm going to use the cash flow register and the NPV button to calculate the future value of mixed cash flows. All right, so here's what we've got we've got a series of cash flows, 40, 10, 60, and 80. And we want to know what happens when this mixed cash flow grows all the way up to the end of year 3. Now we could, if we wanted to, take the future value of 40 and add it to the future value of 10 and the future value of 60 and then add it to the 80. The 40 would be compounded 1, 2, 3 periods. The 10 would be compounded 1, 2 periods, and the 60 would be compounded 1 period. But let's do it all in two steps. The first step, because we don't really have a net future value button, is to calculate the net present value of all of these cash flows. So we're going to drag all of these cash flows back to time 0 using present values, and then we're going to take whatever that summary number is and we're going to move it all the way up to period 3 using a future value. So let me show you how we do this. This is a cash flow problem. We're using the cash flow registers. So hit the cash flow button, and just to make sure that you don't have any numbers left over in there from some other calculation you've done, after you've hit the cash flow button, do second clear work to make sure everything's cleared out. And so let's go ahead and enter some numbers. Cash flow 0 is that 40 bucks, so 40. And we want to, notice it's asking for us to hit enter, and down arrow. Cash flow 1 is 10. And it's asking us to hit enter, so let's hit enter, and once we hit enter, this this little triangle shows up that says that it's been entered. Frequency 1, that means there's only one of them, is equal to 1. Cash flow 2 is 60. The frequency of cash flow, whoops, I don't think I hit enter. Cash flow 2 is 60, I did hit enter. The frequency of cash flow 2 is also 1 because there's only one of those. Hit the down arrow. Cash flow 3 is 80. And we want to enter that. And then down arrow, frequency of 3 is 80 is 1. And then we know that there is no cash flow 4. Its value is 0. And there is no frequency for it as well. Its cash flow is 0. And now let's page through and make sure that we have the right answers, or at least the right inputs. We have 40 for cash flow 0. Cash flow 1 is 10. Frequency of 1 is 1. Cash flow 2 is 60, that's correct. Frequency of 2 is 1. Cash flow 3 is 80. Frequency of 3 is 1. And then we don't have a cash flow 4 and we don't have a cash flow 5, and so we're done. So what we want to do is we want to calculate the NPV, the present value of all of these cash flows. And so to do that, we hit the NPV button. And it's asking for an interest rate, and so we have to put in 10, there was 10%. 10 for the interest rate, and we have to hit enter. It's asking us to hit enter. Now the little triangle says that we have entered it. And now we use the down arrow, and it's saying NPV is 0. Well, that's not the answer. It's asking us to hit the compute button, and so let's hit the compute button. And the NPV of all of these numbers all of these cash flows is 158.78. In other words, the present value of the 80, the 60, the 10, and the 40 discounted back 3, 2, and 1 periods, and then 0 periods for the 40 is 158. All right, what that means is that 158.78 is financially equivalent to all 4 of these cash flows altogether. So we've collapsed all 4 of these cash flows down to an amount that's 158.78 right now. Now, if we want to know how much this series of cash flows is worth at the end of year 3, then that's the same thing as asking what's 158.78 to be received now worth at the end of year 3. So we're going to use the future value function in order to do that. So how do we do that? Well, the first thing we want to do is get out of this cash flow register. So we're going to hit clear, but we're only going to hit it clear. We're only going to hit it once. When we hit clear once, it's going to get rid of this NPV. So let me do that once. Hit it once, not twice. And now we have 158.78. That's going to be the present value, because that's the amount now. That's going to be the present value of our future value problem. So that's the present value. I'm going to hit the PV button. And now we want to find out how much that's worth 3 years from now. So 3 is in. Interest rate is 10%. We just put in the PV. Don't do it again. Periodic payment, we don't have a periodic payment for an annuity. We've already collapsed all of these payments down to that $158. So we have no periodic payment. And we want to compute the future value. And the future value works out to be 211.34. And notice there's a negative sign in front of it. That's because the BA2 plus is always answering the question, if I am to receive $158, which is what we put in a positive present value right now, then how much must I pay at the end of 3 years in order to repay that loan? And that answer was 211.34. So there's our future value. Our future value is actually the positive 211.34. It's just that the BA2 plus is answering a slightly different question from the one we asked. So you have to be very careful about that.